Good morning, everyone, and happy Monday, and welcome to the news agenda with me, Fleet Street Fox. And today I'm joined by Mirror editor Alison Phillips, so no swearing, best behaviour. We're going to go through the best stories of the day and show you the most amazing photo, which has made my day, later on. Throughout it all, we want you to ask questions. This is the People's Paper Review. It's the only one you get to get your 2 pennies in. So get into the comments below and ask us whatever's bothering you, and we'll try and answer them. So what have we got today? Well, COBRA is meeting later on. If anyone doesn't know, that's Committee Briefing Room A in Whitehall. And it's the government sort of emergency committee meeting. And they're meeting today to discuss the new lockdown measures that are supposed to be coming in across the north. So we know roughly what's going to be happening in Liverpool, but not in Manchester because nobody's told them. Apparently the Pennines have got in the way. There's talk of mayors suing the government, and the Mirror has splashed today on a poll by Salvation about how the public sees the lockdown measures. So, Alison, is it fair to say that they hate it?
Well, I think the public are really, really unhappy now. Any sort of sympathy, particularly in the north and areas of Wales, where I think there was a lot of sympathy with the moves that were being and the lockdown that was being introduced, is now all gone. And I think what's really interesting in this poll, and it is a scientific poll of a significant number of people across the whole country, is the divisions that we really are starting to see between the north and the south. So, for example, in the north, 61% of people say that the government lacks a strategy. In London, that number's only 32%. So that's a significant difference. And again, there was another interesting one about almost 60% of people felt that the initial lockdown finished way too early in the north. And I think there's an awful lot that would indicate that the initial lockdown was closed because it suited London and it suited the London economy, when really we know that the spread of the infection meant that probably another couple of weeks up north could have saved a lot of this resurfacing.
One of the most fascinating figures in there I saw was that about a third of people think Boris Johnson's doing a great job. Which mental hospital did we do this survey in? Well, they found a third of them.
Yeah, well, there is 30%, but then I guess that means you've got 70% saying that they're less happy about it, aren't they? So, I mean, there are some people. I mean, people have got very divided views on this. There are some people who believe that we should be that the economy should just be stopped completely if it can safeguard health, and then we've got other people at the other end of the spectrum who feel that really we're going to have to make sacrifices as a society to protect the economy. And what started out as a coronavirus, when it started as something that kind of brought the country together, it now feels it's having completely reverse effect and it is tearing us apart. And that's where you need strong leadership, I think, to try and take everybody with us on that journey together.
Yeah, and Nancy Lou says, are we going to have another full lockdown? What's tier 3 about? I think a lockdown personally is sort of almost inevitable around Christmas, because you have about a 6-week lag on what we've got now with these increased cases. You're going to have another sort of 6 weeks or so before you start seeing large numbers of deaths in the elderly, in the frail, in care homes. There is a lag for that. So that's coming up, but it's coming up just in time for Christmas.
Yeah.
But politically, it's impossible for them to have another lockdown, isn't it? They can't possibly say we're doing this again.
No, although the difficulty about the regionalised lockdowns is there's this huge issues with communication. I mean, there was a great piece in the Sunday Mirror yesterday, I don't know whether you saw that, which was talking about the differences between different constituencies so some constituencies had higher rates of infection and they weren't being locked down, and some had lower rates of infection and they were being locked down. And there's this just sort of general sense that it's not equitable and it's not fair. I guess the point of a national lockdown is it would at least be seen to be equitable, but it would also be horrendous for the economy.
Yeah, but the problem is, let's be devil's advocate here for a minute. The problem is there is always going to be a north-south divide, because COVID takes out those who are elderly, who are frail, who have more poverty, who are living in more deprivation, who live in multi-generational houses, who are more likely to be ethnic minorities, who want to be from immigrant communities, who are suffering huge inequalities. And structurally, the UK has dumped people like that, or corralled people like that in the north, in those post-industrial heartlands where housing was cheap, where social housing was cheap. So you were always going to have, once COVID got in, You are always going to have a problem in
Yeah.
the north compared to, for example, the home counties where people are richer. And so therefore, Boris Johnson has to protect those areas more than anywhere else, right?
Well, I mean, certainly this is a disease that feeds on inequality, and we've seen that throughout, haven't we? And the people from the poorest people have suffered the most, and the people who work on the front line of our society have suffered the most. So that's true. But remember again, there is this huge inequality within London itself. I mean, what appears to be part of the problem here is perhaps the government's problem with regional mayors, and that if actually they've been prepared to hand some of the responsibility and accountability for this back to the regional mayors and back to the regions who know their people, they know their area, they know their business people, they know their health workers, we could perhaps have avoided this. But there's a really interesting piece on that point in today's Mirror with Brian Reid, who obviously has grown up in Liverpool and still lives in Liverpool, and he's writing essentially how the Tories have never got the North. They've never cared about the North. They've always seen it as a bit of a sort of annoying thing that gets in the way.
Desolate North, yeah.
And now we're back to that place again.
Yeah. And Becky says, what time is Boris's speech this afternoon? Desperate to tune in to hear the latest pearls of wisdom from whoever it is who's operating Boris's strings today. The answer, Becky, is that he's giving a statement to the House of Commons at 3:30, having been told off roundly by the Speaker for not bothering to tell the House of Commons things. And then after that, he goes back to Downing Street and makes his address to the nation. So you're probably looking around 4:30, maybe 5. So, keep your eye on your social media, and I'm sure you'll see when he pops up. But
yeah, as you say, Susie, at least this time he appears to be following the protocol. Although so much of the confusion that we've had over this weekend has really been as a result of the idea that the whole tier system was linked to a newspaper last week, and that actually there's been this drip of information, and it's that, I think, that's really made people even more angry. If there was just this sort of honesty and clarity, because everybody accepts this is a really, really difficult job, so just level with people, say it's a really difficult job, say how you're trying to fix it, rather than just leaking little bits to right-wing newspapers who you hope are going to give you a soft landing on it.
Yeah, and not leaking stuff to the Mirror, fools.
Well, yeah, I think that's kind of unlikely.
We can try. And the trouble is as well, they've been treating, Andy Burnham says, I think it's today, says that they've been acting like they're in papal enclave. No one knows what's going on in their discussions. And you've got this situation where they're talking about shutting down various businesses, and we don't know the evidence. No one is telling us what the evidence is or showing us it to see whether that's worth doing or not worth doing. And one thing that's fascinating in this talk about lockdowns was they said they're going to shut down bookies in Liverpool. At what point did someone think keeping the bookmakers open, who can operate most of their stuff and make vast profits online anyway? All right, there's workers in there, I appreciate that. But who thought that bookies was the best thing to keep open? The only possible reason you had access to the high street bookmakers is surely the fixed odds betting terminals that they make huge profits on. That can't be right.
Well, I think, aren't they going there, the fixed odds betting terminals? But I do think that there is this problem throughout, in that people look over there and they see something, well, that doesn't seem fair, or that doesn't seem fair to me because it's not a priority to me. And I think that's unfortunately where we've got to. And there is this sort of general sense that these sort of diktats are coming down from on high with very little awareness of people's lives. And I think when we talk about the economy, we have to remember that is people's jobs. That is people who've worked all their lives to set up businesses, are seeing these fall apart in front of them. This is people who are no longer be certain whether they can buy their kids presents for Christmas. This is life's works disintegrating in front of people's eyes, and we have to keep that front of mind, and you have to keep in front of mind the knock-on effects on health of prolonged austerity, again on people's mental health, and these are all things we're going to be dealing with for years and years to come.
And the issue is whether they're giving the economic support to the areas that they're locking down, because although these are areas that have had these structural problems for so long, they're also the parts of the country least able to work from home, least able to get through the pandemic and everything else without some support. So they need something going on there.
Now we've got in that situation. I think anybody would in that situation. I think it's just about being fair, isn't it? Why should people be getting less help this time from a lockdown than they had the first time when it was a national lockdown? It's that sort of stuff that just seems unfair.
Yeah, exactly. And I also saw in the Mirror today, which we can't have time to talk about, but Rishi Sunak's going to be taxing self-employed freelancers like me more than we're actually earning this year. So thanks, Rishi, because we pay in advance. Cheers. It's good to know that we're so reliable you can screw us. Speaking of being reliable and screwing people, there's a great story of the day. That would be the postman and the dog barking. The story of the day is the one you absolutely must read. It's page 2 of the Mirror. Amazon, a $1 trillion company, has had £11 million out of the British government, the UK taxpayer, in government grants. What's going on there? How dare they? How dare
Amazon? They never cease to disappoint, do they? So Amazon's stock market value 1.2 trillion. That's a trillion. And last year paid just 293 million quid in tax. Took back 11 million pounds from the taxpayer. So I mean, it just appears that there are these huge companies like Amazon, like Google, like Facebook, we know who they all are, that just don't really seem to want to play the game. And unfortunately, the people in charge still haven't worked out a way to deal with them and to actually make them operate on the same rules that the rest of us have to. But I mean, you would hope that they would be shamed into doing it, but I don't think shame's really it. I think we just need very, very, very tight legislation.
Exactly, because there's no way I could get millions of pounds worth of grants. So I don't think anybody else could either, nor could get a sit-down dinner with the head of HMRC to discuss deferring my tax for a few more decades. And on the same page, speaking of cheek, Tory MP Robert Jenrick has won £25 million in grants from his own department to spend in his constituency from the 3 billion Towns Fund. He won it before the last election. Now, the problem with this is, all right, it's fair enough. MPs get money spent in their constituencies and they campaign on behalf of their constituents, but this is his department. It looks really bad. And the same with Amazon in a way. Their grant was for job creation. This is UK taxpayer money people are bidding for in order to try to look more popular and look like they're better than they actually are. And guys, just don't do it. And you would look so much, but you're better PR and you'd be more popular if you didn't bother.
Yeah, and I think it's all kind of comes back to this sort of situation we were discussing earlier in this, how this sort of fracturing of the country. It's when people look at a situation, they think, hang on a minute, that doesn't look right, or that doesn't seem fair, and that's where you just need the transparency, just need the honesty, you just need to take a step back sometimes and think, how does this look to someone who's not in my position, who's not as fortunate as me? How does this look? But there seems to be a complete absence of that in our politics at the moment.
No, I don't think they care how they look, because it seems that they can just sort of go straight over them. They all go a bit Trump, don't they? But now the most important thing, the headline of the day, possibly the picture of the day, which caught my attention this morning. They're barking. Can we see it? Is they're going to put there? Look at those. The most fabulous slippers you're ever going to see.
You think fabulous, Susie. I think a little bit weird. So I don't know if we can work it out from that picture, but the two little things on either side are slippers, and you can see the person's legs popping up.
Yeah, the one in the middle is a dog. That's a Shetland sheepdog. They look like slippers anyway. But
which I can imagine all sorts of problems. Surely your actual dog will be just consumed with jealousy at the two little dogs that are walking around the house on the end of their own feet.
Yes, there is that. And it does say in here that, I've got people ringing me. It does say in here that there are people whose dogs actually think that these are toys they should be playing with, or are small puppies and everything else. But my dog thinks the squeaky fish is one of his own personal puppies that he should be playing with and looking after. So, I think slippers, he would just go right over him. It's the idea of having a slipper that looks exactly like your dog. You send them a photo of your dog and they make the slipper to match. And I think that is, I'd pay £1 million for that if I had it. I think that's fabulous.
I think though that the most cause of household accidents is slippers. So just beware with the slippers, kids.
Especially if you've got long-haired dogs. We should have some problems. Right, I think we'd better leave it there. Thank you very much, everybody. I've obviously got someone at my front door that I have to go and deal with. So thank you for coming. Thank you for paying attention. And we will be back on Wednesday with some more of the news agenda, and let us know what you think then. All right. Thanks very much. Bye.
Bye.